is Paulette Andre, and welcome to my diagnosis presentation. Throughout the presentation, we will discuss my client's information, deductive reasoning, and inductive reasoning, and the roles they play in my client's diagnosis and cultural formulation. My client's name is Kenji Ken Matsuda. He is a 56-year-old Asian American male from Japan who is divorced and lives alone. He suffers from hypertension and is taking medication to manage it. He has no other major medical concerns at this time. His upbringing did not provide space for emotional expression, and endurance and self reliance was emphasized. Ken has one daughter who lives out of state. She moved away for college. His life stressors include his divorce, which occurred 8 years ago, his adult daughter moving away for school, an increased workload and responsibility at work, as well as taking care of his aging parents who require more and more support each year. Based on his reported symptoms and examination, his primary care physician diagnosed him with persistent depression disorder and referred him to counseling. Ken reported the following symptoms: low mood most days for several years, for, as he states, as long as I can remember, low self esteem and strong self criticism negatively, difficulty making decisions, chronic tiredness despite adequate sleep, social withdrawal, especially after work, feelings of hopelessness about the future, reduced interest in hobbies he once enjoyed, such as woodworking and fishing. He states he is going through the motions, irritability and frustration with himself, occasional passive thoughts like, what is the point? Though he has undergone suicidal risk assessment and has no intention or plan. He has reported occasional mild improvement, but never full remission. Here we move on to deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is defined as using the use of reasoning to narrow general thoughts to a specific condition or a specific conclusion. Some questions I would ask to aid in my deductive reasoning include: within the last 2 years, what is the longest you have gone without any of your reported symptoms? Have you ever experienced a period of increased energy, rapid speech, and or impulsivity? What medication are you taking for hypertension? And how did you feel about your divorce? These questions, or the answers to these questions, would help with differential diagnosis and ensure that the client indeed suffers from PDD. Um, after we go through deductive reasoning, I came to the conclusion that the primary physician was correct. Ken does suffer from persistent depressive disorder. In order to diagnose Ken with PDD, 8 criteria must be met. These include depressive mood for most of the days, for most days, which he reported he's been suffering for a very long time. And then two or more of the following: hypersomnia. He is constantly reporting chronic tiredness despite adequate sleep, low self esteem, in addition to self criticism, negative self criticism, difficulty making decisions, which he has reported himself, feelings of hopelessness about the future. Also, criterion D, we skipped C because I wasn't sure that we had enough information to meet that criterion. But he does meet the criterion for D, which is MDD has been present for 2 years. I agree that he has met by five symptoms in criterion A for MDD, in addition to criterion B and C. F is his condition is not better explained by psychotic disorders, which we have ruled out, of course. And then symptoms are not caused by the effect of substances. Now, one of the questions that I chose for deductive reasoning is what medication you are taking, because we want to know if depression is a possible, side effect of his medication. Um, but based on my research, it seems that hypertension often helps with depression, and there are no real cases that show that it causes depression, so it most likely rules out effects of substances. And then criterion H, which causes clinically significant distress in social areas of functioning. As we know, he reported social withdrawal, especially after work. After agreeing with the diagnosis and coming to that conclusion, we go to inductive reasoning, which is the opposite of deductive, and using reasoning to generalize specific conclusions in order to identify patterns in an effort to case conceptualize and also identify appropriate theoretical orientation. The theoretical orientation best suited for the client and the diagnosis is cognitive behavioral. Not only is CBT recognized for positive results in working with clients presenting with depression, but it has also been adapted to work well with clients of culturally diverse backgrounds. Guatam et al. Also listed 5 advantages to using CBT for depressive clients, which include it's used to reduce symptoms of depression as an independent treatment, so you don't need to have another method, you don't have to use medication. It's been proven to work on its own. It has been used to modify the underlying schemas or beliefs that maintain the depression. It can be used to address various psychosocial problems, for example, marital discord. We know socially he's withdrawing and that he's not necessarily happy at work and that he's also stressed about his parents. So CBT could help with that. And then reduce the chances of recurrence. With PDD, it would obviously take time, but getting him to a point where it's no longer persistent is the ultimate goal. And then, of course, increasing the adherence of recommended medical treatment so it helps clients commit more to the treatment and to the therapeutic journey. The last topic of this presentation is cultural formulation. Sperry and Sperry defines cultural formulation as a cultural explanation of the client's condition as well as the impact of cultural factors on the client's personality and level of functioning. Based on this definition and the table provided in Sperry and Sperry, I arrived at the following cultural formulation for Ken. Cultural identity, he defines as an Asian American male from Japan. It is quite possible that he is first generation, which would explain the more traditional and strict upbringing and the lack of emotional space. So that is definitely something I would want to confirm. For cultural stress and acculturation, highly acculturated with high acculturative stress, including saving face, basically covering up symptoms to make it seem like he's fine, he doesn't have a mental illness, or pressure to uphold the model, the stereotypical model, like Asians go, like Asians work hard and they never take time for themselves, and that may be what he feels he needs to portray to be a man in his culture. So that is possible. Um, Cultural explanation is his belief is depression is a weakness and not a medical condition. There's something wrong with me. I have a character flaw, and this may hinder the therapeutic journey, but this is something that we would need to consider as we begin and continue treatment with him. Lastly but not least is culture and or personality. So this component covers the extent of the influence and impact of cultural dynamics and personal dynamics on the um, presentation or presenting problems. I would say for Ken, both personality and cultural factors are operative and strong. Like he he knows, he feels that he needs to portray who he is via his culture, but also his personality has, been kind of molded by the culture. So basically, we have to help him identify who he is aside from culture, which not aside from culture, but just understanding you, yes, you have your culture, but you are yourself too, and just kind of helping to find that balance. Um, okay, here are the references used throughout my presentation. Feel free to read them and learn something new, hopefully. And thank you for taking the time to go through my presentation. Have a good one.